Welcome to the podcast. It's the magical holidays. Time for Joe watching 60 Christmas movies in 60 days. Why, you might ask? Because it sounds like a crazy task to be watching 60 Christmas movies in 60 days. It'll be struggle, no I won't lie. By the halfway point I will lose my mind, but with your support I'm gonna be fine. So let's have a blast on this Christmas time. Join me now and let's find out about today's Christmas movie. Was it good or bad? Happy or sad? Is there another dead mom and dad? Let's get to it with no delay. It's your old pal Joe and he's happy to say welcome to Joe watches 60 Christmas movies in 60 days.
How's it going, everybody? It's me, it's your old pal Joe, and we're still doing our recording marathon. I don't know, it probably takes away some of the magic to have me in retrospect to say like, oh, this is my second recording of the day. But we're not here to make magic. We're here to make podcasts. We're here to watch Christmas movies. And if there is any magic, well, it's an unexpected byproduct. Oh, goodness Christ. Let's just start talking about today's movie. But before we do, of course, we have to talk about my good friends over at Third Eye Comics. Third Eye Comics, it's your headquarters for pop culture goods such as comic books, graphic novels, tabletop games, gaming supplies, music, and movies, and more. Whatever you need, I'm sure they have some version of that, and they can help you out. If you're not in the D.C., Maryland, Virginia area like I am, and you're not lucky enough to be near one of their stores like I am, then you can buy your goods from them online at shop.thirdeyecomics.com. If you need anything, again, that's shop.thirdeyecomics.com. Let them make your Christmas more magical, because God knows mine isn't going to be. That's too sad. That's not true. My Christmas is going to be fine. Speaking of Christmas, let's talk about today's movie, The Christmas Gift. Upon seeing the title of the movie that I have to talk about, I could not think of what this movie was. I rattled my brain. I said, what is The Christmas Gift? Is that the one about the donating a kidney? No, that was a movie that was called The Christmas Chain. Well, then what the hell's The Christmas Gift? And I started reading it, and then I remembered what this movie was. That's where we're at right now. All right, Christmas Gift. We open with some generic-ass shots of Los Angeles at Christmas. Eventually, we settle on one of our main characters. As a little kid, his name is Wesley. His mom comes by and reads a poem that he wrote in a book. It encourages whoever gets the book to write for themselves, like to write stories, to write poetry, what have you. He then packages that poem up with a teddy bear inside of a Christmas gift. It's apparently part of a secret Santa program. So what this kid does is he likes to to find organizations that might be aware of people who could be in need during the holidays. And he comes up with this whole plan by himself, and his mom helps him, and his dad, I think, too, helps him put together these packages that'll be a gift to someone. So in this case, he's packaging up a teddy bear and putting it in with this blank book that can be filled by somebody else. His mom points out that he signed his name to the poem, and that's not really cool when it's a secret Santa. He goes, well, I'll never meet the person who gets this, so what's the difference? And she says, you know what, that's fine. His mom tells him that she and his dad are very proud of him and all of these things that he comes up with. He asks why. He goes, well, because giving these secret Santa gifts that we're preparing was all your idea. You're going to make some children very happy on Christmas morning. And in fact, we cut to a little girl opening the teddy bear gift. She asks her aunt why someone she doesn't even know sent her a present. Her aunt says it's a boy her age who wants to share Christmas with people. It's his hobby. The girl says, if I ever meet him, I'm sure we'll become friends forever. She notices the poem in the book and reads it aloud. She loves it. Then we get on the screen 20 years later. We see the little girl all grown up now. She's our other main character. Well, Wesley is a grown-up, is going to be one of our main characters. But this is our main character for the time being, Megan. She's at work stuck trying to think of articles she can write. Just then her boyfriend, who also works there at the magazine, comes in and breaks up with her. He says he's just been so busy with work that he doesn't think he's been able to devote enough time to their relationship, and also, they're both too similar. They both want to be the top dog. He wants to be the top dog. He doesn't want a girlfriend who wants to be him. He's just not into that whole competition thing. She finally figures it out. "Are you trying to break up with me at work?" He says, "Well, I didn't want to wait until dinner and ruin your evening." She calls him pathetic and immature. He appreciates her understanding and leaves. Just then, her work friend comes by, her name is Nina, and asks why Megan hasn't stopped by the office Christmas party yet. Megan says she was too busy getting dumped. It slipped her mind. Nina replies, "Oh no, Alex?" And I'm like, who else is going to dump her? How many relationships is she currently engaged with, Nina? "I just got broken up with." By who? Your boyfriend? Nina takes her to the office party to take her mind off of things. We jump over to that office party when who should stop by but the big boss of the magazine. He wants them to focus on a local story about people that have been displaced by some corporate takeover. Anyway, it's a big story he wants done well, and he assigns it to Alex. Megan is very frustrated. It seems that a previous story Alex wrote got him this assignment. We hear Megan say that she actually wrote that. How did he get credit for a story she wrote? We'll never find out. Megan storms off to sit outside. The big boss follows her and says, "Look, I'm sorry you're disappointed, but I needed somebody with more bite than you have." And she says, "What do you mean?" And he says, "You're just too earnest. You're not prepared to cut deep into something. You're good at writing about things that make people feel good." He wants her to give him something big and inspiring. Don't just think outside the box. Destroy the box. She says she sure will. When Megan gets home, she finds a package from her aunt. She has sent her the book with the poem inside. Megan is really happy to see it after all these years, and it basically says to no one in particular, this is what inspired her to be a writer. She gets an idea. Since the kid signed his name, she could totally do a story about him. Cut to her searching for him online. Cut to her arriving at an office. She wants to meet with Wesley Johnson. The receptionist says no one can meet with him without an appointment. Megan says it's important and gives her her business card. The woman knows who Megan is. She sees the name on the card. She goes, "Oh my God, I'm a big fan of your writing." She loves her work and the Nightlife magazine. The receptionist now calls Wesley through the intercom and pretends he has an 11:30 that he's forgotten about. Megan goes into his office and finds a man much older than expected. She explains that she's looking for a Wesley Johnson who'd be about 30 years old, and he says, "Oh, you're looking for my son." She asks where she can find him. He says it's at some children's center. Now, he doesn't say it like that dismissively. He's at some children's center. No, he knows the name. He says the name. Megan says she's working on a project and needs Wesley Jr. for help. The guy seems a bit miffed and says under his breath he could have been working on this project here. I guess whatever project his dad is working on seems more important to him. That's something I'm just going to explain up front. Wesley's dad thinks that Wesley is wasting his time by helping children. No, it doesn't make any sense because his dad's not a bad guy, but that is how it's portrayed in the movie. That he's wasting his time, and instead he could have followed in the family business, this big architecture firm that his dad runs. He tells Megan to tell Wesley that he says hi. Cut to her arriving at the correct Wesley's office. As soon as she walks in, she finds him reeling in a fake fish. He explains he just got it. No, it's just him being wacky for sake of being wacky, even though he's not that wacky otherwise. Whatever. She gives him her business card, and he's excited to find out she's a writer. He says the center could really use some good publicity. Maybe it'll get more people to help out with the kids. But Megan sets him straight. Before Megan can set him straight but why she's there, Wesley is called to an emergency. When he arrives in a classroom, we see a police officer is there with a child. The kid was caught stealing something. The man he stole it from is also there. The kid stole a snow globe. Wesley asks the kid why he did it. The kid says he wanted it to give to Wesley as a Christmas gift. Wesley feels bad. The man explains he doesn't want the kid to get into trouble. It could be forgotten if the snow globe is paid for. Wesley offers twice what it costs, but the man says, "I only want the true cost of the item." He hands over the snow globe and wishes Wesley well. The officer and the man leave, and Wesley tells the kid that he did something very bad and sends him to his room to think about what he's done. The kid says he's sorry. Wesley believes him and sends him on his way. Megan walks in and sees the last bit of this. Wesley asks her to not write about that. Megan promises not to. Cut to Megan back at work updating her boss. She updates him on the piece that she's working on, tells him the details of what she's thinking about, this center, this kid that wrote a poem, etc., etc. He says he wants part of it by the next morning. As the boss leaves, she updates her work buddy Nina on the story. She says she sold the boss on the story on the kids center, and now how it's hard to find kids' homes, especially at the age that these kids are. and it's also apparently especially hard during the holidays. But it's going to be about more than just these kids. She tells Nina about the book and how it inspired her to be a writer. The problem is she didn't actually tell Wesley about that part of this then. She says she will, though. She promises she'll tell him soon. Cut to Megan and Wesley meeting for dinner. He's happy to have her write about the center, but really doesn't want the story to be about him. She asks how he came to run the foster children's center. He talks about how he's always wanted to help others. Even as a kid, he created Christmas care packages. He would donate them to organizations that could find good homes for them. It was fun to do, he says. She asks if he's ever had any idea who received those packages. He says no, but that was part of the fun. He'd imagine who would receive them. She asks why he chose to do this work when he could be working with his dad at the largest architectural firm in the state. He's surprised that she knows about that. Cut to her writing. She puts some finishing touches on her story and is very satisfied with herself. Cut to her talking with her boss. He's very impressed by the story. It'll be published the next day. He asks how she plans to top it. She offers up the idea of expanding the story into a series. They have one more edition to publish before Christmas, and it would be great to put the next part of the story there. Her idea is to focus on the children now, find out who they are and how they relate to Wesley. Maybe even find their own Tiny Tim among the children and use it to hook readers. After meeting with the boss, her ex-boyfriend Alex hits her up and asks if she'd like to get back together. She says no, but then he asks if she'd like to talk about it over dinner. She says maybe. Cut to Megan meeting with her Aunt Helen at the senior center where she lives, the woman who she opened that fateful gift with many years ago. She also is the one who mailed the book to Megan these many years later. Megan's aunt explains that she mailed it because the place where she lives is making them clear out their storage space. She lives like in a senior center, and there's an issue going on there we'll learn more about. Megan asks why they're making them clear out the storage space, and her aunt isn't sure, but thinks there's something weird going on. Megan asks the woman at the front counter of the senior center about the storage space issue. She finds out the whole place is being shut down as part of the revitalization that came up earlier in the movie. Megan says she'll see what she can do. See what she can find out about the whole deal. So early in the movie, the boss at the Christmas party said he had this big story he wants written about some revitalization that's displacing people, and this is that. Apparently it's affecting the senior center. We jump over to Megan meeting with Wesley. He says since her story came online, then it hasn't been printed yet. They received a $5,000 donation already. $5,000 donation even, not just $5,000 donation. Megan says that's great. She explains that she's there to talk to Wesley about possibly expanding the story into a series, maybe use it to inspire people for Christmas. He asks what more is there to say. Megan says ask to speak to him privately. She explains that she'd like to do stories that focus on the children, with an eye toward maybe finding them foster homes in time for Christmas. Wesley is in. Most of the children they have found homes, already have homes for Christmas, but there's 6 that left that are harder to place than others. For example, there's Chase, the kid who stole the snow globe. There's also Shelley, who lived in a home full of shouting and now only speaks in a whisper. Megan promises to do her best to help. He says, you know what, I'd like you to do something with me tonight. Cut to Megan chatting with her work pal Nina about the problem with her aunt's housing situation. Alex, the ex-boyfriend, overhears this and mentions how it ties into the story that he's now writing. He lets him know that he found out the company behind it is run by Wesley Johnson Sr. We could have figured that out just by watching this movie. It would have made sense. Wesley's dad is also behind, because he works at an architecture firm, is also behind this displacement issue. Alex says this could get him and Megan a chance to work together, share a byline, combine their stories. It talks about how they could knock it out of the park by focusing on the father versus the son, the prophet versus the charity. Megan says she'll talk to him about it later and walks away. Cut to her arriving at Wesley Sr.'s office. She explains to the receptionist, who remembers her, that she wanted to personally give him a copy of the magazine. She finds out he's not in the office today. He's actually in a library nearby. But the thing is, the library is still in the overall office. It's like he's not in his personal office in the big building, but he's in the library, which is also in the big building. Anyway, she goes to the library. She finds him there. She gives him a copy of the magazine. She also wants to talk about her aunt's home. He says the area needs to be revitalized and offers her no hope of anything changing. He does thank her for the magazine, though. It's nice to know his son isn't throwing his life away. Cut to Megan arriving at a bowling alley. This would be the thing that he invited her to. We get a short bowling montage. The kids have a great time, so do the adults. We get a bit where Wesley helps her bowl by doing that thing where he gets behind her and wraps his arm around her and helps guide her arm so they can go bowl together. And oh my gosh, it's so sensual. Cut to them talking about how Wesley ended up at the foster care center. He had a big time degree and tons of opportunities. How does he say no to all of that money and success? Wesley says it depends on how you define success. Then she just changes the subject altogether and says, well, what's the most rewarding aspect of your job? When one of these kids doesn't come back. And Megan's confused. How can she be confused? Well, he explains. When they find their forever home and then they don't come back. I'll miss them, but it's the best thing that could happen to them. She pitches a potential second article to him. He's concerned. He doesn't want these kids to become rungs on her ladder to success. She promises he won't regret it. He'll think about it. Cut to her writing at home. There's a knock at the door. It's her work friend Nina. Nina brought them some wine to drink. But then Nina finds out Megan still hasn't told Wesley about the book with the poem. So you're lying to him? Megan says she hasn't lied about everything. She just hasn't told him the whole truth. Megan thinks it would be awkward to say something at this point. She's right. But it would have been awkward no matter when you did it, because it's an awkward thing to bring up. Hey, you remember this gift you sent out to an anonymous person 15 years ago? Guess what? It was me. She mentions that Wesley has agreed to a second article, but the catch is she has to volunteer at the center as part of, I guess, proving that she's doing it for the right reasons. She's really unhappy about this. What will she do with all those kids? And the thing is, she says, what am I going to do with all those kids? And that does not feel like a response that actually fits in this movie with this character. We've seen her around the kids multiple times, most recently the night before, or maybe even earlier that evening at bowling. She is great with the kids. So why is she acting like, oh, not with all these kids? And it just feels like they wanted the character to be different than it is in this one scene. And I got really annoyed by that. Nothing in her story so far indicates she doesn't like kids. Nina says that maybe Wesley might be trying to spend more time with Megan, outside of the story. Megan thinks that that's ridiculous. We jump to Megan at work, where her ex Alex again tries to convince her to merge their stories into one about a father versus a son. She's not interested. On top of trying to keep her piece positive, it would hurt Wesley to do that to the story. Cut to Megan reading to the kids. They love the way she tells a Christmas story. Wesley makes eyes at her as she reads. Afterward, Wesley tells her that he's really impressed with how she handled the kids. She says she's happy to help him. I mean him and the kids. Because it's that thing where she says it and then she's worried that it's too intimate. I'm happy to help you. I mean, help you and the kids. She also tells him about meeting with his dad, about her aunt's home. Wesley knows how it goes without even hearing the story. That his dad says, in order for something new to be, we have to get rid of the old. He basically repeats word for word what his dad said without having been there. Wesley says, we can't help with that now, but what if you worked with the kids to make Christmas cards for the seniors, and then they could get something out of this too? Like, we can't help with the home being shut down, but maybe we can have the kids make cards, visit the seniors, hang out for a bit. That would be pretty cool. Megan thinks that sounds like a great idea, but then she has a better one. What if instead of that, Wesley works with the kids to recreate his old Christmas package project, where the kids can make Christmas packages for the people at the home? He loves it. He says, Megan, I could almost kiss you. She leans in, he leans in, but then one of the kids knocks on the door. It's the one who stole something earlier, Chase. He gives Wesley $20. Wesley asks where it came from. The kid doesn't answer, but asks if this means Wesley will accept the snow globe as a gift. Wesley says he now will. The kid is very happy. And I'd be like, I'd worry a lot more about where this kid got $20. He doesn't have the best recent history. As soon as Chase leaves, the little kid that is, in walks Wesley's assistant. She shows him a purple heart medal. He says, wait, where did you get this? And she says, I just purchased it off of Chase for $20. And this is a reference to the fact that, and this was done earlier, but I didn't note it, that Chase's dad passed away in combat in Afghanistan. So this Purple Heart is representative of the service that he provided and the loss in battle. So he is so sad about not being able to give Wesley this snow globe. He sells his dad's Purple Heart medal And that's very sad. That's very sad when you think about it. We jump to Megan meeting with her aunt. Her aunt is so proud of the story that she wrote in the magazine. We learn about how her aunt took her in after her father abandoned her. Megan tells her aunt that she's going to have to move. There's nothing that can be done. Her aunt is sad but understands. She says to Megan, it'll work out somehow. Cut to Wesley meeting with his dad. They catch up and Wesley's dad says he's worried about Megan. He's met her twice and isn't so sure she's as genuine as she seems. She might be trying to get to Wesley's dad through Wesley. Wesley is fed up hearing this. His dad tries to make it seem like it's not a selfish perspective, but it's hard for Wesley to buy into. When he says he thinks he knows Megan pretty well and he believes in her. But after they bicker for a while and before Wesley leaves, his dad gives him a check for $10,000 for the Children's Center. He says reading the article really opened his eyes and he wants to help in any way he can. Wesley is touched. His dad suggests that if he's really misjudged Megan, maybe the three of them could get dinner tonight. Wesley thinks that's a great idea. After Wesley leaves, we see his dad ask the receptionist if those papers he's asked for have come in. They did. He gets very stern and tells his receptionist, do not tell anyone about this. We jump over to the kids at the center putting together Christmas packages. Chase, the kid who steals and sold his dead dad's Purple Heart, throws a tantrum about how his dad's really going to come home one day, and he's not dead. Megan tries to make him feel better, but he storms off. Now we cut over to the kids delivering the Christmas care packages to the seniors. Everyone has a good time, especially the seniors. We catch up with Chase, the kid who steals. He's carrying around his care package and finds a room with an older veteran sitting by himself. He gives him the gift. The man immediately thanks him and gives Chase a hug. Cut to Megan finishing up her story in the office. Alex, her ex, don't forget, comes by and tells her the deadline for the digital edition is in 10 minutes. This freaks Megan out. She races to Nina, this is her work buddy Nina, to get the photos that are going to be used in the story. While she's gone, Alex uses her computer to read the story that she's written. He also sees a message pop up on her phone about her dinner date with Wesley. She hurries back and sends the story without checking it to see if anything has been changed since she was gone, which makes sense. Why would she think something has been changed? Megan hurries out of the office for her big date. But then Alex calls some guy and tells him to put a hold on the story that Megan just sent. He says the final version will be ready in 30 minutes. And so what he did was, he told her a lie that the story was due in 10 minutes. So Megan hurries up, finishes the story, and sends it. But he also gets her to run away from her desk while he's there. And you think, okay, so he's going to make changes to the story, and then she won't realize it, and she'll send the story off, and he'll get his way of getting the story to be about a father versus a son. But then, no, she sends it, and then he just calls the guy who she sent it to, and is like, put a hold on that. I'll get you the real version soon. And then he just has as much time as he needs to retype it. And it's like, why did the first thing happen if the second thing was going to happen? Or vice versa. Jump over to Wesley and Megan having dinner together. He admits he has trust issues at first. He had trust issues at first, but now he thinks that she's great. She says she thinks he's great too. They hold hands, but then, my friends, Wesley's dad shows up. He sits down and the other two just keep holding hands, which I was surprised by. Wesley's dad says he's excited to get to chat with someone who has written so much about his son, but then Alex, the ex, walks in because he saw that note pop up on her phone about where the date was. Megan sees him and basically starts having a panic attack. He stands over at the bar. Megan excuses herself and walks over. She demands to know, what are you doing here? He plays around like a jerk asking what the big deal is. He says it's not about her. It's about a story bigger than the both of them, and it's going to happen whether she wants it or not. Just then, back at the table, some dude walks up to Wesley's dad and says he has some documents that he requested. Wesley's dad excuses himself. We then see Alex walk over to Wesley's dad as he's talking to this document man. He accuses Wesley's dad of putting people in the streets. Wesley goes over to see what the deal is between his dad and this new guy, Alex. Megan tries to get Alex to stop, but she can't. Alex addresses Megan in a way that tells everyone that he knows her, so they're like, wait, you know this guy? He says, yeah, I'm her boyfriend. Megan immediately denies, this is not my boyfriend. Wesley's dad says, well, you seem to think you know a lot about me, but what you don't know is I'm currently making plans to move the development outside of town, thus sparing the senior center. Alex is stunned and embarrassed. He had no clue that that's what was happening. But then, oh no, Wesley's assistant from the children's center walks in. She passes a tablet computer to Wesley and shows him the story that has gone online that what's her name? Megan. Oh my gosh, what a blank there. That Megan supposedly wrote. The story makes Alex very mad, and we can see that it's called Like Father, Unlike Son. This whole story has been changed to focus on the father-son dynamic. Megan just stands there. She says nothing. Eventually, Wesley reads the byline and sees that it's called Like Father, Unlike Son. An expose by Alex, whatever his last name, and Megan, whatever her last name is. This snaps Megan out of her stupor. She didn't write that. He says Alex must have put pieces of her own story alongside his. She didn't do this. It was Alex. Oh, your boyfriend? No, he's not my boyfriend. Wesley's dad is pissed. Wesley is pissed. They leave. Cut to Megan sitting at the bar of the restaurant alone. She gets a call from the magazine boss. He explains that Alex told him what he did. He admitted to his crimes. And the boss says, as dumb as it was, Alex thought he was helping you. And I'm like, who cares what he thought? Fire that man. He, behind another employee's back, changed the story that she submitted without her knowledge and without anybody's approval. And you're like, well, he thought he was helping. Who gives a sincere fuck what he thought he was doing? Goodness gracious. It just made me so mad that the boss's response was, well, he thought he was helping. He also says that they've already pulled the piece and they're going to have to re-edit it for publication. He tries to tell Megan not to give up, another rah-rah shit. The speech makes no sense given what's happened. She hangs up. She says Wesley hates me, his father hates me, and even I hate me. And I want you to think about this for a fact. Why does she hate herself? She did nothing wrong here. She still has the secret of the book with the poem, but that hasn't come out yet. So why does she hate herself? Alex went behind her back and changed her story. So why does she hate herself? It's because the writers know that she has the secret about the book, and it's like putting these two together. I guess in theory she could be mad at herself about that, but that doesn't seem like what the case is. Anyway. Cut to the next day. Wesley's assistant tells him that she believes what Alex said, that she didn't write that. And she asks him, it seemed really weird, the way she worded this doesn't seem like her. But then a man in a suit arrives. He has a note from Wesley's dad. He wants to take all of the kids to a Christmas Eve lunch at Wesley's dad's house. Wesley says to his assistant, I figured my dad would be mad at me. He gathers up all the kids and they go to the lunch party. They get taken by limo to the party, to the mansion. It's a very big mansion. He tells his dad he's really sorry about the story, and like I said, the problem here is the story says that Wesley's dad was shutting down the senior center, which at that point was factually incorrect because Alex didn't know that part of it, and that's why it was basically an incorrect story about a person, and they got framed, even though it was true up until shortly before that. Anyway, his dad says it's no problem. They pulled the story, and the publisher issued a retraction. He wants to talk about the kids. He says he's invited the kids there because of the party he was already having. He thinks it could give people a good chance to get to know the kids, and maybe some of these people that have so much would be willing to give something of what they own and maybe give these kids a home for the holidays. Wesley is touched at what his dad is trying, and Wesley's dad says, no, I didn't think of it on my own. I had help. He then points to Megan, who is there taking photos. He says, what's she doing there? Well, he introduced me to her editor, and he believes that Megan was telling the truth about not writing that story. Wesley goes over, and Wesley and Megan reconciled. Next up, Wesley's dad gives a speech. It mostly focuses on the hard work Wesley does at the children's center, and then tells everyone to help with the kids if they can. He also thanks Megan for her help in shining a light on everything. Megan then takes the stage to speak. She talks about how she tried to do good, but she screwed up. She never meant to hurt anyone. Again, none of this is her fault. She talks about how 20 years ago, a young man gave her a gift that changed her life. Wesley recognizes the story that she's telling immediately. She says Wesley has touched the lives of so many people. She thought she knew what she wanted in life, but she was wrong. Her speech is kind of all over the place. Eventually she wraps it up. Wesley asks why she didn't say anything about the package before. She says, I was going to, but then you said you didn't want the story to be about you. And every time after that, it just felt awkward, like I was trying to make the story about you and maybe me. He says he never thought he'd get to meet someone who received one of his gifts, and she said she never thought she'd get to meet the person behind her gift. Eventually, after much hemming and hawing, they go off to dance. We get a montage of them from throughout the movie, and return to the present to have them finally kiss. The end. This movie is better than I have made it sound. It was totally fine, and it seems like one of those nice little sweet movies that you come across on TV, and you just settle in. You're like, you know what? I'm glad I watched that. This was totally fine. Everybody did a fine job, better than I did in talking about it, that's for sure. And if you have any questions or comments about this podcast or any others, you can reach me at JOEMOC on all the social media platforms. And that's about it. Oh, MVP of this movie is going to be, I think, Megan. She did a good job. I enjoyed her work in this motion picture. So that's it. That's it for now. I'll see you next time in episode 37.